Okay, we've got a preview of the UAP caucus's questions for AARO in the upcoming SCIF. We've got that and a lot more to talk about today, so get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please like and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. Okay, from Matt Laszlo to Askapol, new exclusive preview of UAP caucus questions for AARO in a SCIF. Representative Jared Moskowitz tells Askapol he plans to press AARO on David Grush's lapsed clearance, public disclosure in UAPs. Broadly, that's what they're in charge of, he tells us. Okay. Let's go directly to the article. Moskowitz has questions for AARO on David Grush's clearance, public disclosure in UAPs. All right, very good. What are you hoping to get out of the AARO SCIF? Key Moskowitz. First of all, I'm glad they're doing it. I think it's important. Look, I think I'm going to have a lot of questions on UAPs. That's what they're in charge of. Well, they're in charge of hiding evidence about UAPs, but okay. I'll let that slide. We'll talk about some of UFO whistleblower David Grush's accusations, but also, disclosure to the American people. Some of the UAPs they're able to explain, they're on their website, right? Other UAPs they're not able to explain, and they're not able to explain them away like weather, right? I have questions about why they can't do that. The mystery of David Grush's lapsed security clearance. So that's something that's been discussed previously, right? Because we've been trying to get him into a SCIF, and the reason why they were not able to do a SCIF is because, one, it won't get approved, but two, because they took his security clearance away. And this is something we've heard debated back and forth. Did his security clearance really get revoked? Did he really get stripped of that security clearance or not? And I've seen this go back and forth. I even talked about it with Steve Bissett the other day, and so he wasn't sure. But from Jared Moskowitz's information, and presumably he would be in a position to know, yes, David Grush's security clearances were indeed taken away. And he says no resolve on that. That's why we need the select committee. That's why I'm supportive of a select committee. I love it. We need that select committee. Either the select committee or the subcommittee of the House Oversight Committee devoted to UAP. Monetary holdup hasn't come up with Moskowitz. Some say Grush's clearance is held up because of a lack of funding, but it sounds like this is more procedural. That I don't know, Moskowitz tells us. That I don't know. Let me know what you think that means. Lack of funding. Why would Grush's security clearance be held up because of a lack of funding? They don't have enough people to restore his security clearance or something? Help me make sense of that response. Caught our ear. Now we're filming these things more and more and more. People are seeing it with their own eyes. Why can't they explain what they are? I think there's going to be a lot of focus on that. Well, there should be a lot of focus on that, Jared. 100%. What will they get out of AARO? I'm not expecting a whole lot, but hey, you never know. You never know. Sean Kirkpatrick, the lovely Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, is gone. And so maybe whoever's running the SCIF will be a little bit more transparent. I'm not holding my breath on that, but hey, let me know what you think. Meanwhile, Richard Dolan is saying, hey guys, we're getting a little bit too woo-woo with our approach to UFOs, and we need to step back and get a little bit more nuts and bolts. In a recent interview, he had this to say. And this is from The Breakdown by David Haith, and thank you so much, David. Richard Dolan says that academics who talk about UFOs need to get a little more nuts and bolts about this. Frankly, I think they're way too infatuated with the mystical aspects of the UFO UAP subject to a point where I think it's becoming counterproductive. Two, discussing some disagreement he had with one or more presentations at the Seoul conference, Richard said, I think there's a definite need to get a little more factual, a little more material, and actually to look at what is happening within the military and with actual people who are experiencing physical, actual UFO craft, which goes on a lot. I don't see a lot of that. There's still a big love affair that a lot of folks have with the so-called interdimensional elements of this and mystical elements of it. I'm not saying that there's nothing strange about the UFO phenomenon, he says. There's a lot that's strange about it, and in all likelihood, there's an ability that these other beings have to manipulate what we would call space and time reality. And to all of that, Gary Dolan replied. He says, I agree with Richard. For Seoul, it's really an attempt to get a whole of academia buy-in and a way to talk about it. As with the most mechanistic things in my own field, like biomedical research, ethics, religion, death, psychology, etc., are part of the conversation. My personal focus is on the material aspect, getting other fields to comment and become interested, especially when there are so many unexplained issues, multiplies the effect. Richard is right, though. If done wrong, it can be used against the goal. And, I'm sure they're 100% right as far as engaging the mainstream and pushing the ball forward on this. Talk less about the trippier aspects of the phenomenon and more about the nuts and bolts is probably going to get more people's attention than focusing on the weird stuff. But for my own personal interest, I'm interested in understanding the phenomenon just as much as I am in presenting the evidence and pushing things forward on that level. And I am totally committed to pushing things forward on that level. We definitely need to engage the mainstream and all of that good kind of stuff that Richard and Gary are talking about. But on this channel, I also try to focus on what the hell is going on. What is the phenomenon? What is it up to? How is it related to us? How can we interact with it? What is, the bigger picture to all of this? And that does have some trippy elements. That does have some other dimensional and consciousness aspects to it. And we could sit here and wait for the governmental process to continue for another 70 years while they, maybe tell us the truth about that. And I'm really hoping that it's not going to be that. I'm really thinking that it's going to be a lot sooner than that we are going to get stuff this year. And in the next few years, it's going to be, gangbusters, a series of disclosures. I don't know if we're ever going to get, the whole enchilada, but I do think we're going to make some progress. But I am not going to wait for that to talk about what the phenomenon is and how, people relate to it and what it all means and, what we can do about it. And, because there are things that you can do because the phenomenon isn't just nuts and bolts. It is trippy. It is mystical, parts of it. And we can all interact with some of those elements of it. And I've talked about that before. Many others have as well. Peter Maxwell Slattery talked about that a lot on the interview I had with him just the other day. Uber experiencer Peter Maxwell Slattery is able to interact with the phenomenon in a big way. And we can too, guys. We can too. So I'm not going to shy away from talking about what I consider to be very important stuff, how we ourselves can interact with the phenomenon and even ourselves in a deeper way. But that said, I totally respect what Richard Dolan and Gary Dolan are saying about in the mainstream to engage the public's interest in the mainstream science and government, to focus on the nuts and bolts. Totally respect that. Meanwhile, while I'm not going to really discuss the current war going on or potential war going on, not in any detail at this moment, it is very interesting when you see tweets like this. So Israeli, UK, and US forces were able to intercept and block 99% of drones and missiles fired at Israel last night when this tweet was made, Well, this is awkward. Why can't U.S. forces stop drones entering their own training grounds? Well said. Meanwhile, Whitley Streer has some stern and grim words for AARO in the cover-up. As he says, and this is going to get a little dark, guys, because Whitley's experiences do have their dark parts. While with the publication of the AARO report, the U.S. Department of Defense has engaged in a lie that is even more grotesque than it appears. Millions of people around the world are under many different kinds of pressure from an extremely strange and aggressive presence that appears to be connected with UFOs that AARO has once again lied about. I am one of those people, says Whitley, and let me summarize my story very simply and concretely. On December 26, 1985, I was kidnapped out of my home in the dead of night and subjected to a rape with an electrostimulator that induced an ejaculation. The ejaculate was harvested. I received a rectal injury from this attack that left me in pain for the next 20 years. I was also, I believe, at least in part by the application of methodical and sinister social engineering masterminded within the U.S. intelligence community, made into an international laughingstock. The phrase rectal probe was singled out in my book Communion and made into a comedy meme. My rape was turned into a joke. The result was that people stopped buying my books and I was humiliated beyond belief. My life was almost completely ruined. I had a strong support with my wife, Ann Streber, and we fought back together. She has passed on, but I am still here and still fighting, and I will continue until the day I die. The greater question is, why have eggs and semen been extracted from so many people, and why aren't we being defended, or at least warned? Let's be clear, the Defense Department of the U.S. has declared itself. It is not defending the American people from this presence. Instead, with its lies, it is defending the presence. So our Department of Defense, which we pay for, does not answer to us. It answers to these rapists. And it goes on, but there you go, some very scathing words from Whitley Streer. And you know, he's not wrong. He is not wrong at all. In fact, there's quite a bit of evidence from quite a number of experiencers that some element of the UFO control group is even assisting in these abductions. Now, some people think the abductions are not a negative thing, that there is some ultimate good to be had from it, an upgrade to humanity or something like that. Whitley himself, in his books, is not as negative on the phenomenon as it would appear from this blog. He's actually reached kind of an understanding with the phenomenon and is actually fairly positive on it. But that is not at all to discount especially his early experiences, which were horrific and traumatic, and even there was some assault going on, and which is, I'm sure, the case for many, many experiencers. Here is a New York Times article discussing John Mack and his work into abductions and research into abductions, and it talks about the Roper poll conducted by John Mack, David Jacobs, and Bud Hopkins. And so let's just talk about that a little bit. As is true of most other UFO abductees who have been studied, psychological tests suggest that Peter Faust isn't crazy, one of the experiencers. Nor is his story all that unusual. A 1991 Roper survey revealed that 2% of American adults had experienced 4 or 5 of the strong indicators of having been abducted. And in fact, David Jacobs has since said that the 2% number wasn't accurate, that the real numbers were so alarming that they had to arbitrarily throw out some responses to get it down to 2%, that the real percentage was closer to 5%. So that extrapolated to the global population, that would be 5% of the worldwide populace. Now, even if it's only 3%, that's over 200 million abductees. abductees, and this is generational usually. If you're abducted, your parents may have been abducted, or one of them may have been abducted. And it's yeah, so it's generational. It's a lifetime situation in many, if not most cases, abducted from childhood all the way to your old adulthood. So yeah, week by week, month by month, year by year. It's a huge operation. It is a huge, massive, alarmingly vast operation that the beings are about. And obviously, a big part of the reason why they are here is to carry out these abductions. Now, the good news, I guess, is that according to the Edgar Mitchell Foundation, 8 out of 10 longtime abductees have a positive view of their experiences. So, I guess that's a good thing. I guess, is that Stockholm syndrome, or is that an ongoing, an evolution in their thinking on their experiences, and an evolution in their own interactions with the beings? Either way, it's a huge operation that the beings are involved in, and in some level, there's some humans also involved in that, likely with the UFO control group. And meanwhile, they are denying all of this. And there is a disinformation campaign, and there has been for many years, to discredit experiencers like Whitley Streer. And so, even though his words are very dire and grim, they are not dire and grim without reason. He and many others have experienced some traumatic stuff. So it's time to end the lies, guys. It's time to tell the truth about the phenomenon. But the disinformation is still continuing, guys, and major media outlets are still pushing it. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating, guys. Here's an article from MSN.com. You didn't see a UFO. It was probably one of these things. And it goes through a list of things, rockets, meteors, etc., that you probably saw instead of a UFO. And to be sure, many, if not most, UFO sightings can be explained by prosaic reasons. A lot of them are rocket launches or meteors. But we're not interested in those. We're interested in the real anomalous sightings. And dismissing the whole thing is not helpful. Neither is this skit by Saturday Night Live mocking experiencers like Whitley Streer. However, it was funny. But there are people that are open-minded and speaking up about the UFO phenomenon.
Well, I disagree with you. I think I'm not saying there's aliens among us. I'm not saying there's not. I think,
what are you saying?
Yeah, Bill Shatner is not a believer in UFOs, which is so frustrating, but at least Bill Maher is open-minded about it. Avi Loeb, however, continues to be only slightly open-minded about it. Only one type of alien life form could make it to Earth's doorstep, according to Harvard expert. A renowned astrophysicist is calling foul on reports of alien sightings in Earth's atmosphere, arguing that biological creatures would be unable to survive a journey to our planet. It would take about 1 billion years to cross from one side of the Milky Way galaxy to the other, says Avi Loeb. Given that, I don't think any spacecraft that would arrive to us from another star would carry biological creatures. However, the good news is he does say, as a scientist, I respond to evidence. That's what we are waiting for, the government to disclose what it knows. It's really important for me because I'm trying to find the evidence myself, but the government can save me a lot of time. Why should I spend decades of my life looking for something when the government already has it? So yeah, so he's basically saying it's very unlikely that aliens could have come here, but, the government does seem to know something. So, I'm getting, mixed signals from Avi Loeb, but, at least he is a little bit open-minded, and he is aware that the government seems to be hiding something, which of course they are. But let me know what you think about that and everything else talked about today in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. I sure appreciate it. Smash the like button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, links below. Love to see you guys there. If you wanted to support Cosmic Road in any even bigger way, consider grabbing a coffee mug or a t-shirt in the merch store below, or by becoming a channel member, because channel members are rock stars, and I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you. Meanwhile, there are plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.